start with roll call and approval of proxies.
All right, Alarape,
Here.
Archer,
Here.
Dominguez,
Here.
Cantz,
Here.
Dumont,
Here.
Else, here, Fernandez,
Here.
Hewitt,
Here.
Jurens, Call, here, Kessinger, or Proxy Borman,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Lockwood,
Here.
Proxy Estabo,
Here.
Mendez,
Here.
Paulson,
Here.
Quigley,
Here.
Rust, Siekman, Twing, Wee, Van Ruler, and Proxy Zog.
Here.
All right, we have quorum.
So, we'll move on to approval of the proxies. Are there any issues with proxies? Senator Russ.
Motion.
Seconded by Alarape. All in favor of approving the proxies, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Proxies are approved. Approve the agenda. Did people get to look over the agenda, even though there's a word Microsoft 365 logo in front of it? There are no qualms with it, then it is unanimously approved. Approve of the minutes. People look at the minutes from last week. Any issues with those at all? Okay, minutes are approved. We have no open floor guests aside from all of the wonderful students from the residence halls. Yeah, here. So thank you for joining us. This meeting should be hopefully pretty interesting. You'll get to kind of get a sneak peek of what Senate is like, and hopefully you'll want to run. I think we have petitions laid somewhere. Senator Call, do you know where those are at, the petitions?
They're next to the sign-up sheet. So if you didn't sign up, make sure you do that so we can get the piece of harmony to the correct place. So.
Awesome. But yeah, welcome. We'll start with our unfinished business with Resolution 23S010 with the Mars supplemental.
So this is resolution, Marshall's like resolution number 23S010. This was presented last week, so I won't be re-presenting it, but it's just a supplemental. Does anybody have any questions on like what they're using the for, or
Any motions?
entertain?
Okay, motions by Senator Fernandez, seconded by Dominguez. We'll go to roll call. Sorry.
You're good.
I didn't make it. Still have to make a research for it. 22 or 23 back.
Sorry, guys. Awesome. Alarape, Archer,
Aye.
Cantz, Dominguez,
Aye.
Dumont,
Nay.
Else, Fernandez, Hewitt, Jurens, Call, aye. Proxy Borman,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Lockwood,
Aye.
Proxy Estabo, Mendez,
Aye.
Paulson, Quigley,
Aye.
Rust,
Aye.
Siekman, Twing, Wee, Van Ruler, Witt, or Proxy Zog. Right, it passes.
Moving on to Resolution 23S0011 Casting Club supplemental.
All right, so Marshall Schleich, resolution number 23S011, presented last week again, so I won't be re-presenting it. It's just another supplemental to casting for this time. Does anybody have any questions about it?
Any motions? Senator Lockwood?
Motion to vote.
Okay. Seconded by Alarape. We'll move to roll call.
All right, Alarape,
Aye.
Archer,
Aye.
Cantz,
Aye.
Dominguez,
Aye.
Dumont,
Aye.
Else, Fernandez, Hewitt, Jurens, Call, aye. Proxy Borman,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Lockwood,
Aye.
Proxy Estabo, Mendez,
Aye.
Paulson, Quigley,
Aye.
Rust,
Aye.
Siekman, Twing, Wee, Van Ruler, and Proxy Zog.
Aye.
It passes. I guess for our guests in the room, would maybe someone from the Finance Committee, maybe Senator Russ, want to give a quick clarification for what supplemental resolutions are? Sorry to put you on the spot.
So supplemental resolutions are essentially, like it says in the title, supplemental funding for clubs that don't currently have enough funding for something that came out of the blue, or they decided to go through an extra competition, or they need extra money for equipment costs that malfunction or something. So there's supplemental funding that you can request, and it's up to $5,000 for every 2 years. So you can request up to that. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or cool.
Thank you. I guess moving on to new business, we have resolution 23S012 for the trap shooting club.
Marshall Slake, resolution number 23S012, presented on the 8th of March 2023, originated in the Constitution Committee, presented by myself. Whereas adequate interest has been expressed by students wishing to form an organization, the Trap Shooting Club, and whereas there are currently no organizations that overlap this interest, and whereas a constitution has been constructed and reviewed for said club, and therefore be it resolved by majority vote of the Student Senate and the signature of the Student Association President that the Constitution for Trap Shooting Club be approved, allowing formal recognition.
Are there any questions for Senator Lewis? Okay. If not, we'll see this next week. Moving on to resolution 23S013, midterm grading policy.
I have a second one, but it's on that one.
All right, Marshall Slide Resolution 23S013, presented on March 8th, 2023, originated by the Student Affairs Committee and presented by myself. Whereas there currently exists no formal policy for midterm grading deadlines for professors and instructors, and whereas, as a result, students often experience uncertainty in their grades past withdrawal date for classes, negatively impacting their academic success, and whereas the Student Affairs Committee has researched Board of Regents and other various university grading policies, and whereas the Student Affairs Committee recommends the following policy points be adopted by the university. Number 1, professors and instructors consistently update grades in D2L within 2 weeks of an assignment or exam's due date, unless otherwise specified by department. 2, professors and instructors will be required to display a calculated grade in the D2L grade book for each student before the withdrawal date of each semester. Noting, the Provost's office has asked faculty to use the D2L gradebook and ensure grades are calculated and displayed to the students. Therefore, be it resolved by a majority vote of the Student Association Senate and the signature of the Student Association President that the Student Association Senate supports the referred policy change in regard to grading programs.
Are there any questions for Senator Call? Senator Rust.
Just clarification, this is just supporting, like, document, not necessarily, this is like what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to get policy ourselves, but the Provost office is working on getting stuff. So this is kind of just saying, like, us as students, we want this, so then hopefully it can help them. Yeah.
Question, so this is, instead of, this is adding on to the already required midterm grade posting? It'll be before the add drop date, or am I confused?
Okay, so the hope with this is that, so if professors post like throughout the semester as the grades come in, that by midterm and stuff, students will know where they sit in the class because they will have been getting grades throughout. So yeah, it's kind of an addition to that. And then the second bullet, that kind of requires your professor to have like your calculated grade with like the weighting and everything on D12 so you can see the actual like grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, we will see this next week. Thank you. Moving on to resolution 23S014, SOAP allocation. This will be fun.
Read off my computer so I can face you guys.
That works.
Marshall Slike Resolution Number 23S14, presented on the 8th of March 2023, originated by SOAP Committee, presented by myself. Whereas the Student Association Senate Student Organization Appropriation Process SOAP Committee has reviewed all SOAP budget requests for fiscal year '24. And whereas the SOAP Committee has reached consensus on how SOAP funding should be appropriated, and noting the General Allocation Fund Committee has recommended a total SOAP budget of $315,000 for fiscal year '24, and therefore be it resolved by majority vote of the Student Senate and the signature of the Student Association President that the recommendations shown on the following pages of this resolution for SOAP FY24 be submitted to the campus president for final approval. And then, if you want to scroll down, if you open the document, you don't need to, just for people who want to look at it and send it nicely formatted, if you open it on your desktop app, the formatting will look right. Basically, thank you. No, thank you. This looks much better. But basically, every club that applied for SOAP is on this list. So you have their index, which is their SOAP account. You have the organization name. You have their requested amount, the amount that after we went through the typical deduction process, they had, and then once we got to the typical deduction process, we'd gone from, if you go all the way to the bottom, center call. So the original request was $403,501.47. After the typical deduction process, which I can explain if anybody wants me to, we landed at $349,373.12. And then discussions with the GAF committee, between the GAF and SOAP committee, we landed on a final SOAP number that we can actually afford of $315,000. And that required approximately a 10% cut across the board for all clubs. So that third column, which is titled Amount Allocated After Required Deduction, is what clubs will actually get. Overall, we appropriated, if this gets passed, about 78% of the total requested money. The per club average is 75%. I have a lot more I can talk about now, or I can talk about it during my CFO discussion part. But is there any questions on that?
I guess one point, Senator Culp, you could go to the top again. I would just like to friendly amend. It wasn't the entire GAF committee, it was just the student portion of the GAF committee. So you might want to just change the wording of that if people are fine with that
I
being a
thought
friendly
about
amendment.
it, since students are majority, technically passed.
I suppose, yeah.
So I thought about that. We welcome to, but.
Yeah. Senator Rust.
We're gonna also have the friendly amendment number.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention that. So not all the account numbers are fully updated. Oh,
Actually, the total amount number noting, the second line, it's technically $31,500. Should be actually zero.
yeah, it needs 1 0. But that brought up another good point. Those account numbers that are at the very bottom are not fully updated. I'm waiting for all the account numbers from Deb in the what's the business office?
Finance office.
Finance office. So next week we'll have to friendly amend to when those are all updated.
Senator
There
Lewis.
should be lots of questions. So please
Yes.
ask.
By my count, I see 5 clubs that requested money and got 0% of their allocations.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened?
I can talk about that. Yeah. So, so the first one is Fly Fishing Club. Simply for them, everything that they requested should go through rebranding, not through SOAP. So they will get that money, but they just have to go through rebranding. Health and Fitness Club. The vast majority of their requested money was for 2 personal training certificates, which SOAP cannot be used for. It would have only gone to 2 individuals, and there's no guarantee that they would have actually contributed to the club, what the club's hoping to get out of them. It's a personal thing, not something SOAP can fund. Study South Dakota, or Study Dakota, they're not an active organization right now. so that's why they didn't get an allocation. Hard Rock or Hockey, everything for them, again, should have gone through rebranding, so they will see the money, but it's going to be through rebranding. And then InterVarsity, they came and presented the original budget request. I want to say it was like in the 7,000. Well, it's on here. Well, no, it's not on here. It was in the 7,000 range. They amended their request to $0, and because they got a large donation and they didn't feel they needed the money. But we put down the 0.01 so that next year, or if in the future they need to request supplemental, one of the requirements is that you've applied for SOAP for the last 2 years. And just so that they're capable of applying for supplemental funding if they need it, we put down the 0.01. And then for SASE, they did not make the SOAP presentation. So I think that's all the zeros.
Senator Siegman.
Has this been sent out to clubs already?
No, we have to pass it first.
Any other questions, comments? And then I guess one other point of clarification, that 10% deduction was taken after the initial deductions, correct?
After the initial
Okay.
deductions, the 10% is then taken across the board.
Senator Rose, did you have something? Or no? Okay, sorry. There are no other questions or comments. We'll see this next week. And then we'll move on to Resolution 23S-015, Constitution revisions.
Marshall Slight, resolution number 23S-015, presented on the 8th of March 2023, originated by the Constitution Committee and presented by myself. Whereas revisions to the Student Association Constitution have been proposed over the past 2 semesters, and proposed revisions were conceived with input from the Student Association during open meetings this semester and the Student Association Executive Board. And noting the proposed revisions include phrasing changes, clarification, and expected updates. And whereas the revisions have been made and are redlined in the corresponding document, and therefore be it resolved by a 2/3 majority vote of the Student Senate and the signature of the Student Association President that these Constitution revisions move to an all-school vote by the Student Association.
Senator Russ.
Just scroll up to the top of the document, please. Can you friendly amend, we'll have to friendly amend
Yeah.
to change Vice President Schlenk's name.
Thank you. And then I suppose once that friendly amend is done, maybe we could pull up the Constitution. Like, I can help you find it in the draft teams. I'd like for us to go over like the revisions one by one, see if there's any discussion over them.
Correct. This is something that Committee Chair Kessinger spent the majority of the time on, so I cannot name each and every single change. I believe Kessinger's proxy has more information on that.
No.
I suppose I might go
I
first.
don't have highlights for the changes with me, as Kessinger has all the notes.
Yeah, well, because it should show, like, see how, like, section is crossed out and stuff like that. I went through and updated some of the sections. I still need to go through and update a few more just because some BOR policies were out of date in this. So it's nothing like, you know, groundbreaking. It's just updating sections that may or may not exist in BOR policy anymore. I still need to go through and amend just a couple of those. If you want to scroll down a little bit further, I think there's more changes below. Yeah, there we go. Some of the wording for like of the university, just phrasing and stuff, more sections. Just updating pronouns, gender inclusive language. We've changed a few things for the secretary. If we want to go over that. If anybody has any comments about this or questions. Yeah, this can be, well, this can be found in the Teams, but we can also email this out to people. I think the main thing with the secretary thing is, with the secretary section is if, say, Secretary Garcia is gone, instead of me taking notes as the vice president, the PR chair would then take over. So Senator Else would begin doing that if this was changed. The chief financial officer is also moved under executive positions. If for some reason that was not under there, it was just moved for clarification. Yeah, that's why that one's moved there, and then you'll see later that it's all crossed out at some other point. So.
Is there anything else this is?
I guess we can just keep scrolling through, but see, that's where the CFO is crossed out. If you're looking on your computer, has anybody found anything they want to talk about at all? I guess most of it's pretty standard stuff. It's nothing super exciting aside from, oh, Senator Siegman.
This is just a friendly query, no harm, no foul. But upon talking with some fellow senators, I have begun to think that maybe, I don't know the process of doing this personally, but I would recommend personally that we start to we change the Constitution to say that rather than running for a senator position based on credit hours, it could be credit hours and or year standing.
Okay.
For me, for example, I am in credits a junior and therefore would have to run as a junior next year. I do not feel like I would accurately represent that class. So I feel like that could be something that we could consider amending as a suggestion.
Senator Rust.
I think just to add a little bit of that, doing that and or instead of just changing it to credits would be, some people have classes in their credits and so they're more apt to talk to those people in their classes versus their standing. But then in Senator Siegman's case, they're more apt to talk to people in their class standing because they're living in the dorms and they talk to them versus their credits. So it makes sense to do both.
Okay. Because I suppose I know an issue with, like, just say, by whatever year you are, not by credit hours, like just say somebody goes on co-op, that may be an issue. So I think with the and or that might solve that. Senator Van Ruler.
I am higher up credit hours, but I do not have to run in my credit hours. I run in my class.
Oh.
So I don't know if there's
so who was GR chair last year?
I'm just saying that I don't think it's actually been that big of an issue with people getting like both sides of the.
And I suppose if we look to Senator Lewis as well, I think you might be in the wrong section as well.
Understanding as a sophomore.
Yeah, and Jacob told me last year that he thought that was fine.
Okay. I suppose we could probably formally make it a better policy, just because, like, sure, it's happening, and that's up to you. My hands are tied with this for sure. If you guys want to motion to amend anything in here. But.
I recognize that this is very late in the game, and so I completely understand it cannot happen this.
No, and that's why we're bringing it up at this meeting, so
Yeah.
people can go through and see if there's anything. So, Senator Rust.
Yeah, definitely changing it would probably, we're doing it anyways, you might as well change it so that way you're following your constitution versus
Just hopping on. Yeah. I suppose. Oh, Senator Archer.
Yeah, I think doing that as well might make it more accessible to like peers. Like you said, like I have friends who are higher lower credit standing than me, credit standing than me, but I feel like they're in class.
Yeah.
That and they physically cannot vote, or like they're that class they feel that identify with. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Senator Else.
If we do this, how would voting work? Because like right now it just logs you in based on your credit hours. So would you just like go to a page and get to pick which class you vote on?
See, this is where it gets kind of. See, we have a question in the audience. If somebody wants to allocate their time
I
for
yield
that.
my time
Okay.
to Jordan
Yeah,
Lambert.
so I came here, it's my first year here, and I went to vote for all of my friends who were freshmen.
Mhm.
But I came in as a sophomore standing, I couldn't vote for other people I knew.
Interesting. Yeah. I I feel like that's definitely a big issue, so.
I couldn't vote for myself in this past.
So I don't want to say as you're having that discussion, maybe we talk to Vicky Bender and just see if there's something they can adjust in the system. No, the one reason we didn't do it on Rocker Central, for example, is we have no way in there to prevent someone from voting in other classes there, but so maybe we find out if there's a way that IT can change that.
Would we want to see any motions for amendments this week at all for this, or do we want to postpone it until next week? Because if not, we can.
We have time.
We do have time, as long as this is like sent out and ratified by this administration's end, which is April 5th. We should be fine. So we do have time to talk about this some more. We don't have to even vote on it next week either. We can continue to talk about it more. But Senator Jerns.
I have a question about vacancies.
Yes.
Is there going to be any more added to that? Because right now the only vacancy is president.
Where's that at on this sheet? So Senator Call can, like which page, I guess? Sorry, I don't have it pulled up in front of me. Would you want to go to page 16, Senator Call? Thank you.
Because we have previously seen other positions vacant.
Yeah. Would you want this to just include like all positions, or are you citing specifically like just for like the executive? Sorry, I just.
Yeah, well, I mean, it says something about other vacancies in the Senate, but
Oh, it only says president.
only president.
I think the way that it's structured right now is like if the president is permanently vacant, then the vice president would assume that, so on and so forth, and you'd find whoever set the bottom of that rung to replace probably the normal senator. But if we want to clarify that, if you want to make any amendments to that.
Is that clearly laid out in here?
Yeah, that's a good question. Did you find that at all, or no? Okay. Is this the correct page, Senator Jones? Sorry for the confusion. Section 7? So looking at section 7, part A, is that okay? Do people find that clear enough, or would a rewrite be in the interest of the Senate, I suppose? People give that a quick look. Senator Jerns.
Can I just make a comment
Of course.
about why I
Yes.
feel this way?
Mhm.
So, last year when Marin left,
Yes.
there really no one knew what we were supposed to do
Mhm.
because it's just not there.
For sure.
But also vice president is a big position to fill, so you can't really just force a
Yeah.
chair up into that
Mhm.
position. So I think it would be smart to have that laid out.
Okay. Would you want to amend this now, or maybe just work on it later, or
Just work on it.
Okay. Yeah, we can work on this later. We'll bring it back next week for that, for more rewrites and rereads. I'll just kind of make a note to come back to this section specifically. Any other questions or comments? I suppose we can continue to scroll through, but I don't know if there's a lot. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Senator.
Oh, you're getting finished for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
So related to what you're just talking about, I just noticed something too. So in the rare event where both president and vice president can't serve or are gone, I know it says that they'll work to, the Senate as a whole will work to find a replacement. In the meantime, we probably should have like a chain of command, someone who can be interim.
We do have that. We do have a
You do?
chain of
Okay.
command somewhere in here, and that's actually being changed. So then SA would not immediately take over vice president. We would have it go, I'm not sure which page that's on, do you know? I think it would start with Constitution, Government, SAPR, Finance, I believe is the way we have it laid out in this new rewrite. And then we'd find, you know, an actual replacement if both positions were vacant forever, I suppose.
I was just envisioning like no one would call a meeting, no one would do an agenda.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's somewhere in there. That's why we're just rewriting it a little bit differently. But sorry I didn't see you earlier.
And then I don't know that you need to change B too much, but again, what does eligible replacement mean? So obviously, I mean, I think that's coming from the class, but I know we've had questions sometimes where people were like, hey, I was the next person on in the election. Why wasn't I asked to do it? So you may just want to clarify where you would pick that eligible replacement from.
Yeah, we'll work on that. Cool. Is there anything else, or should we keep scrolling through, or people have you seen? Is there anything else below that? So. Yeah. I would just say, yeah, read this over, come back, not next week because spring break, please don't come back next week. Come back 2 weeks from now. And then we can kind of discuss more of the nitty gritty stuff if you've given it a look and if you have any questions or comments or want to change anything. In the meantime, I'll continue to update a few of the section things and maybe add something that reflects Senator Jurin's concerns about the line of succession for weird happenstance cases. So
where can you find it?
This can be found in the Teams. Thank you. If you go, it's out in general, and then if you go to, actually, yeah, Senator Call, if you just want to show, under Constitution Committee. So if you go to Documents, Constitution Committee, 2023 is the Constitution rewrites in all caps, essay. Boom, there you go.
If you guys don't want to hunt for it too, I can also include it in the minutes that I send out this week.
Yeah, just send a link to it.
Yeah, I will.
Cool. Just don't rewrite anything on that, just make notes because that's technically the live document for our drafts, so we need to know what's being changed, I suppose, just so it isn't just a free-for-all in there. But besides that, if there's no other comments or questions, we'll see that next week and probably for many subsequent weeks. We can move on to open discussion. Somebody have anything for open discussion? Senator Alarabe.
This is like an unrelated type thing.
Sure.
Trap Club, is Trap Club shooting supposed to be doing a presentation? Because they're here.
I was not aware of that, but that is very good to know. Senator Lewis.
Trap Club is not doing a presentation today. They're doing a presentation the week following spring break.
They were not letting know that, so that's they're all like,
Wait, where's Trap Club at? I want to apologize. I'm so sorry. Our current president, he's out sick with COVID, so I'm sure there's kind of a miscommunication there. So I apologize, but we'd love to see you guys back in 2 weeks. So I'm sorry about that. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. You can stay if you want to enter the pizza party, but sorry about that. Have a good spring break. Anything else for open discussion? I think I had something here. Oh yeah, so Dean DeLugos made me aware of this in our leadership meeting just a few minutes ago. The president's office is currently looking at changing graduation or commencement ceremony to only happen in the spring and not the winter semesters. It'd be good to have student voices on that, so if we could maybe talk about that here and maybe have a resolution supporting either or next time we meet. I guess I might open it up to people's ideas. Senator Jurins?
Why?
We'll defer that to
Yeah. So a couple reasons. The main one, and you might be able to help me with this, Senator Jurins, the curriculum in mechanical engineering changed recently, where it's almost impossible to graduate in December if you're a mechanical engineer. So where our winter graduation numbers are always much lower than spring, it has been noticeably lower at least the 2 years that I've been here. So this most recent December, we had just like 81 or 82 students who graduated, which is really a small amount if we're going to rent out a space that really holds like 600, 700 people, get everybody there. And then the other reason we're trying to become more in line with the other schools in the Regental system, and I think there's still 3 of us, including ours, that do have winter graduations, but us and DSU were looking at possibly changing. So that would just leave one, which I believe is SDSU or USD.
Any thoughts from senators on this? Senator Seacon?
What would that mean to the students who would be done with their degree requirements come winter?
Yeah. So they can choose to participate in the spring commencement.
So they just would not have a degree for the spring semester, or I don't know what's going on.
They would still be able to have their transcript, their degree would still be mailed.
Oh, okay, it'd be
But
finished.
if they wanted to actually physically walk across
Okay.
stage, they could come back in the spring.
Okay, I thought that was implying that they just would not graduate until the spring. They just have to wait around. Okay.
Nope, sorry.
Senator Ellis, did you have something?
Oh, I did, I forgot, but, is there any way, like, if we did decide to go the route of only having, like, a spring commencement, we could still have an informal one in December?
Yeah, and the executive council is considering that too. One of the other, it's not as important of a reason, but we're trying to book a smaller room so that we don't feel all dwarfed in the LaCroix space but in Monument. But Western Dakota Tech has already booked that out until like 2027, so we can't book that. So we were talking about maybe the gym here on campus. It might interrupt basketball season, but that's possible.
Also, follow-up question, when would this, like, go into effect? Would it be next December?
No, 2024. So students who are planning to graduate for 2023, they can still, December 23, that would still happen. The room's already booked.
You have no stakes.
Yeah, no stakes for me, just curious.
Any other, Senator Jordan?
Maybe they should just consider changing the mechanical
Oh. That's helpful. That actually is helpful feedback.
Any other discussion on this at all? It'd be nice to maybe have a resolution either for or against it, or just a blank one that you can friendly amend next week. Not next week. Again, please don't show up next week. 2 weeks from now, at the next meeting, so we can maybe have a more formal stance on this. Give people 2 weeks to kind of think it over, maybe talk about it a little bit more with constituents. That way, the president's office is just a little more aware of how students feel about this. So, that sound like a good plan for now? Okay. Anything else for open discussion? Seeing none, we'll go on to this CFO report.
Yeah. Okay. So I've learned a lot of new information today. I'm going to try to share it with you in an understandable way. Not making a promise, but I will try 2 weeks from now to come back with maybe 1 or 2 PowerPoint slides that summarize our understanding of our different accounts. So first, I just want to say thank you to the SOAP committee and also GAF for taking all the extra time to meet these last few weeks and get through all the SOAP budgets and the SOAP allocations, and GAF not just getting ready for the meetings in the coming weeks, but also, or GAFAC I should say, getting ready for the meetings in the coming weeks, but also helping us come up with what SOAP number can we choose that's fiscally responsible. That was a really long discussion. And so I'm going to talk about now some of the information I've learned about where we stand, and then I'll give you guys a little bit of insight. And then once, if we do pass this next week, I will then send an email out to campus explaining why everybody got cut at least 10%. So first big thing to understand is that there is we have 2 main accounts connected to SOAP. The first one is 4SA002, and the second one is 4SA003. The 003 is what you see referenced whenever we do supplementals. So how it works is at the end of every year, any unspent SOAP money goes into 4SA002. So at the beginning of the year, I'm going to use whole numbers so I don't have to say 8 digits. So these are very slightly rounded. But at the beginning of the fiscal year, before any SOAP had been allocated, we had $626,000 in our reserve fund, which is the 002 account. At the beginning of the year, we then allocated our SOAP budget, our rebranding budget, and our safety committee budget out of our 002 account into our 003 account. Additionally, throughout the years, throughout this whole school year, as we've made supplemental requests, additional money matching the value of those supplemental requests is then transferred from 002 to 003. So now to give you guys numbers so you can wrap your head around it. So we started in 002 with $626,000. Our current balance in our reserve fund is $296,000 now. We have transferred $423,000 into 003, of which $145,000 has been spent. This means in 003, unspent cash is $279,000, and then you can add that to our reserve fund, which is $296,000, and I have not added them. I think it adds up to about $575,000. Now, keep in mind the $279,000 in 003 can be spent. That means that's money that student orgs have not spent. That's money rebranding has not yet spent. That's money safety committee has not yet spent. That's money supplementals we've allocated but haven't been spent yet. All of that goes into that 279. So our floor for our starting money next year is $296,000. The most money we'll have in the reserve next year before we make our allocations for SOAP is $375,000. Does anyone have any questions on that before I continue? This is my best understanding after talking with Deb today. Okay, so then how did we land at $315,000 for SOAP? First off, GAFAC has been working with Dr. Spindle and the finance office quite a bit to come up with a preliminary budget before we start our hearings. In that budget, they currently have $275,000 for SOAP set aside. If we assume that gets funded, we have to think about what that $275,000 all goes towards. There's a couple non-club things that are currently included in that $275,000, which is Cultural Expo and Rocker Days, which add up to about $20,000. Is that what we said? Yeah. So it adds up to about $20,000, which means that $275,000, we actually have about $255,000 that will come our way, which is much better than the last 2 or 3 years, which has been zero coming our way. So it's been great on the finance office part, working with us to get our budget fixed. And talking with Deb today, they have some reserve money of their own. Okay, this is an important thing to note. Talking with Deb, all of GAF does not roll back into our reserve. Only the SOAP-related portions of GAF roll back into our reserve. The rest of GAF rolls back into its own reserve, which Deb Rouse and the finance office can allocate as they wish. That reserve sits again about at $575,000. Talking with Deb, it sounds like they want to, and I'm going to say this, but this is not promised in any way. Deb and I were just chatting, and she was throwing ideas out there. If there's a shortfall in GAF funding, she said there's a possibility that they'll pull out of the reserve to ensure they give us the SOAP that they say they're going to. Where was I going with this?
It's a lot of numbers.
Yeah, sorry, it's a lot of numbers. So we'll get back on. So we'll say 255 is coming our way from GAF. What this means is our total, like I said before, our total SOAP request is about 350. So if we take the 255 minus 350, that's $95,000. And then if you add in a couple of other expenses, which will most likely roll onto our books, including probably about $40,000 in supplementals and potentially another if GAF's not fully funded enough, another $10,000 in expenses for Senate. That brings you up to $130,000 to $150,000. And I will put together a spreadsheet or a short presentation 2 weeks from now so you guys can see this. But if you take our floor, which is $300,000, and you take the fact that at the $350,000 SOAP level, we would potentially cut our reserve in half. It's not sustainable. And so what we're doing on our end, working with GAF, we chose 315 by looking at the numbers for FY22 and FY23 that were allocated for SOAP. And we kind of just went in the middle, which was 315. And we looked at how that would balance our budget. And it essentially gives us at least 2 years of room to fix the budget. If enough money rolls back, it gives us 3, maybe 4, if we're lucky, years to fix the budget completely. And so 315 is a number there was a lot of discussion we eventually all felt comfortable with. And that, like I said before, that required about 10% on top of the other deductions we had done. One thing we are trying to do is we are petitioning, and I think we've talked about it before maybe, but we are petitioning the state for a GAF increase of $1.17, is that correct? About $1.17, which would, at 30 credit hours, would add about $35 to each student's expenses each year. And the expected revenue from that is around $73,000. So one GAF increase has the potential to buy us another 5 to 7 years of wiggle room to, in a way. So there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of little nitty gritty things you can do. I just want your takeaway to be from this, we don't have a lot of reserve money to play around with. I mean, it sounds like a lot, but when you look at our shortfall, it's not. And if we don't get the GAF increase this year, then the next 2 or 3 administrations will need to work hard to finish balancing the budget. Yeah. And last thing I will say, for SOAP, we're looking to rewrite parts of the SOAP Constitution as well. One of the things we want to do is from here on out, tie the annual increase in SOAP that's allowed to the South Dakota projected CPI inflation each year. So like for this year, for FY24, the projected CPI is 2.4%. So if we were doing this a year ago, then we would have done 315,000 times 1.024, and that would have been about another $7,000, $8,000 increase over the previous year. And that's so that we can sustainably, we can be fiscally responsible going into the future. And so we've done a lot on our end. I'm hoping the state will help us out on theirs. But yeah, just so you guys all are aware, you can come and talk to me about it. But questions?
Any questions for the CFO and the dour news that we were just handed? I guess one thing that we might want to take into consideration with this is with the inflationary thing, that's a very good thing to do probably, but the number of student orgs continues to increase each year. I believe we gain more than we lose. Am I correct in saying that? So you not only have like inflation, which that's one thing, but you also have more clubs fighting over that small inflationary increase. That might be something we look into in the future. But
yeah, and I guess one thing that illustrates that is last year we allocated 93% of requested money. This year we allocated 75% if you look at per club. So it is a big drop, even though the money drop is only $25,000.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, moving on to the vice president report. That's me, but I'm just acting president today, so yay for me, I guess. Mainly been working with the APAC things, but among other things with mental health initiatives that we've tried to take stances on in the past. You're probably tired of hearing me talk about that. But with House Bill 1079 being passed, that we worked hard to lobby for at SHED, more than likely we won't see a dime of that. So we've been kind of working with other resources that we may be able to use in the coming years so we can at least see some progress. I talked with the peer mentor directors, Rob and Kareem, as well as Dwayne Kavanaugh, with counseling to see maybe if we could get peer mentors QPR trained or something along those lines. Dwayne is very on board with that, and both Rob and Karina are also on board with that. I guess I might ask, what do people think about having peer mentors be QPR trained? I know I've heard a few dissenting and affirming comments, so might open that up to a few comments quick. Senator Ellis?
I guess, yeah, I've already talked about this with you specifically, but to everyone else, I thought it'd be a good idea to just get all the freshmen QPR trained instead of the mentors, because like I've been a student success mentor, so I've had guys, and I just don't really see them coming to me with their issues. I feel like they'd probably go to their buddies that were in the mentor group, and then if we started with the freshmen, it just like everyone would eventually be QPR trained, hopefully, is the whole goal.
Any other thoughts or comments on that? Senator
Do you want to
Jones?
explain what QPR training is?
Yeah, I actually don't know what QPR stands for. I apologize, but I know it's essentially maybe a mental health equivalent to CPR. So if a friend or somebody that you know is having a mental health crisis, Senator Lewis, I guess, yeah, you are.
QPR stands for question, persuade, refer.
Oh yeah, I suppose you're trained. Would you want to kind of give a quick debrief? I apologize. Sorry.
It's been a second since I've been trained. QPR is suicide prevention training, and currently, usually 1.5 to 2 times a year, all of residence life goes through it. So there are mentors in all the freshman and sophomore communities at minimum for it, but I could see it being beneficial to be worked into an all freshman class stance.
Senator Ellis.
I was QPR trained a couple years ago, and I think the main thing I took away from it for what it is they compared it to CPR. Like, it's not your goal to like save, I mean, it is your goal to save them, but it's like CPR gets them from wherever they are to a hospital. QPR training is supposed to get them from wherever they are to counseling so they can talk to a professional. So like that in between bridge to like just keep them alive long enough to get professional help.
Thank you. Senator C.
I don't know if this has been brought up, but it might be a really easy thing to integrate into the orientation schedule for freshmen. I don't know if that's what you're proposing.
That's kind of what Rob was mentioning, was depending on whether we want to have peer mentors or all the freshmen. The freshmen would probably be more of a logistical challenge since orientation is already pretty full the way it is. I can mention this to him if people are more on board one way or another. I know they're very happy to work with us for this because any help is good help for that, especially if it can even help one person. Any other? Oh, yep.
So when I did the QPR training, you usually turn to a partner and go through scenarios. So if it is a freshman thing, it force them to interact.
That's yeah, good. Senator Ellis.
Sorry, another thing. Also, it can be kind of triggering. So I think if we did do it for the freshmen, just having those warnings there and making it not like super optional, but okay if they don't do it.
Senator Alrapin.
As a freshman going through orientation this fall, I felt like you could cut out a couple of those activities that were, I thought, kind of useless, and that would be a way better option to fill the time.
What would some of those useless? Yeah.
I'm not thinking of that.
No, like, I don't know. I'll have to elaborate with you individually, but I just thought that some of the events, I thought that they had a great intention, but those intentions weren't met, so it seemed almost as if, like, it was just filled space, if that makes sense.
Could I, maybe for Ben, or I should know that, in the training, like, is it just discussion based, or are you filling anything out, like assessment wise?
Yeah, so when Dwayne trains residence life, it's back and forth between a lecture style and then what Dwayne talks about. You go and you complete an activity in partners or in small groups, and then you'll go back and work on another section and then work in small groups again. And it is a half-day long training.
Senator Russ.
Two things. One of the things is probably the scavenger hunt, Senator Allen. But two, it could also be a thing where both of them go into it. So like the mentor goes with their mentees. And
Yeah.
that's addition.
Senator Jones.
There is like a shorter version of it too, because Zach did it in like an hour and a half. So.
I guess, so I thought that was the full version, was the hour-and-a-half version, at least that's the way Dwayne made it sound, no? Okay, never mind then.
That the full version that we do will take 4 to 6 hours.
Oh, okay,
It's a very long activity.
sounds good, sorry, that's just the impression I was given by Dwayne, but sounds good. Any other comments before I continue the report, I guess? Thank you for all the feedback, though, this will be really useful for helping freshmen and everybody else on campus the next couple of years, so. Okay, moving on with that, kind of related, well, very related actually. Also speaking with President Weiland from USD, actually they had their elections, he's no longer their SGA president. Anyway, former SGA president Caleb Weiland. To get their form of SOAP for student organizations, all of their student leaders need to go through QPR training. Again, if we just kind of have like all freshmen do it, then that doesn't need to be anything we look at. Would that be something we'd be interested in having for the next, like, say, 2 years, and then once everybody's trained, it doesn't really matter? Any thoughts on that at all? I just figured I'd bring it up since that's what another school does. So, seeing none, I guess we probably won't move forward with that, that's fine. I just figured I'd ask people about that. Moving on to kind of budgetary things related to CFO Leonard's report. The gap increase does not look great, but President Marshall and I, and possibly CFO Leonard, will be going to Aberdeen at the end of the month here to hopefully petition for it and to go to the Student Federation meeting regardless. That's really about it. So, any questions? Oh, Senator Else.
From President Marshall on the live stream, Kessinger texted Schleich some stuff that he didn't check yet.
Let me check my phone here. I see President Marshall tried to call me. Okay. 1 second, I'm sorry. If you have any questions about the Constitution, you can also email Senator Kessinger, but it looks like most other things that he texted me about were pretty well covered, including the Trap Club thing, which again, oops. So I apologize to Trap Club if they're watching this, or Trap Shooting Club. Thank you for that. Any questions? If not, we'll skip the President report because President Marshall's out and he pretty much relayed everything to me. Moving on to international report. Okay, any questions? Veteran report.
No report.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, moving on to graduate reports.
No report.
Okay, any questions? Seeing none, moving on to non-traditional report.
No report.
Seeing any questions? Seeing none, moving on to Constitution report.
Kessinger will be sending out an email outlining the changes to the Constitution.
Sounds great. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, moving on to public relations.
We finished verifying all the Hard Rocker discounts listed on the website, which dropped by a lot. Not a lot of people offer them anymore, or a lot still do, but we lost like a third of them, I think. I'm putting in a job request to get it updated on the website, so that will be updated soon. We're working on calling the new businesses that people wanted from the survey, but if anyone has any local places that they're close with and want to ask about a discount, just let me know, and I will ask them, or you can ask them and let me know if they want to offer a discount or not. End of report.
Sounds good. Any questions? CFO?
Yeah, I guess it's been a long time, but in the freshman and sophomore dorms, do we have anything posted that shows where the discounts are at?
I think during orientation they might be handed something, but
We were not this year.
you were not. Okay, never mind that.
They used to have them in the bathroom
Senator
flyers.
We had a walk where we walked to the places.
Oh, yeah.
There was only
And
like
that
3
was,
or
yeah, there
4.
was like 4 or 5 places, but that was the only information we were given by Rogers.
I would say once we get it updated, and I won't speak for Bryce, I'm sure they'll put stuff up in the halls, but we can have walking posters made in this building. And we can just look at other places on campus too to see if we can get posters.
Oh, I was hoping to have an updated list like by the transition meeting and then just get that put out everywhere. I remember they used to have them like in the bathroom flyers on the stalls, which I think would be good.
Know while you go.
Yes, that thing. But yeah, just once we get it updated because it's still kind of a work in progress.
Senator Dumont.
Oh, wait, no, not.
Oh, what?
Not-
Okay. Any other questions for PR? Not, moving on to governmental relations.
Presidential elections are still happening, I think until 7, so if you haven't voted, go vote. And petitions are up for senator spots, so.
Yeah, so anybody who wants to run for re-election or anybody in the crowd who wants to run for election, definitely go for it. There's petitions over there by the sign-in sheet on the computer. So, Senator Lewis.
Elections are open until 9 p.m.
So you have your choice of Sam Kessinger and Ben Lewis or write-in. So, go Pokemon, go to the polls, guys. Any other questions for GR? Seeing none, we're moving on to student affairs.
Thank you guys for coming to the meeting tonight and for those senators that came to the open forum last night. Wasn't super successful, but we'll kind of start. We don't have a ton left for essay this semester, so I think for the rest of the semester we're going to brainstorm ideas to get better student engagement for next year. So, end of report.
Any questions for student affairs?
It's going. If you ever need any assistance, I can try to reach out to athletics/football, mostly football. I can help in that situation.
Perfect. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to campus or ad hoc committees. Senator Else?
Parking appeals is meeting tomorrow at 2, so if you're on that committee, go to that meeting.
Is the scheduling for that figured out? No?
Yes, it's much better.
Perfect. Senator Russ.
Rebranding, found a new graphic designer, and probably went and talked to have a meeting with him today. Me and Ann did. Very excited to get going again, so we're actually going to get locust.
Senator Seekin.
I'm not sure if this applies to this section of the agenda, but inclusion committee is now meeting again now that Cedric is back from his maternity leave, so there'll be stuff in the works for that.
Sweet. Sounds good. Senator Paulson.
With the cameras, I started an email chain that's getting me towards like the scheduling of when these are going to be installed, and they're actually going to be installed by outside contractors in some of these cases. So that wasn't really originally planned, but there's like I'm like 3 people deep into the email chain now, but we're getting there. So I'll have an update for that probably when we get back from spring break.
Sounds good. Do we think we may or may not see a resolution for phase 2 of the cameras, considering phase 1 has not even been installed?
I would no.
Okay, so that'll be next
We should see how
administration.
phase goes.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions for any of the ad hocs or any other ad hocs that want to report? Okay, seeing none, we have no upcoming Senate business aside go vote. That'll be the announcements. And then moving on to announcements, I have one announcement for those of you who signed up for the SPS pie eating contest. That will be held after the Senate meeting, after spring break on the 22nd at 7 p.m. I believe we're in the classroom building, so make your way over there, have some pie, and enjoy that. Any other announcements? Senator Quigley.
292 days of Christmas.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Any motions? Senator Russ. All rapid. Okay, all in favor of adjourning, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thanks, everybody.
Bro, you gotta get the